Michael Jackson's life and career placed his children under one of the brightest and most enduring spotlights in modern culture. Born on August 29, 1958, in Gary, Indiana, Jackson rose from a working-class Midwestern family to become a global superstar, first with the Jackson 5, and later as a solo artist. His 1982 album, Thriller, became the best-selling record of all time, cementing his reputation as the king of pop. For decades, his musical innovations, performances, and cultural impact defined an era of entertainment. Yet alongside his achievements, Jackson's personal life remained the subject of continuous scrutiny, from his eccentric lifestyle and changing appearance to the highly publicized allegations and trials that surrounded him. When Jackson died suddenly on June 25, 2009, at the age of 50, the world's attention turned not only to the loss of an icon, but also to the 3 children he left behind. The major confirmed fact is that Jackson fathered 3 children during his lifetime. Michael Joseph Jackson Jr., known as Prince, born on February 13, 1997. Paris, Michael Catherine Jackson, born on April 3, 1998. And Prince Michael Jackson II, born on February 21, 2002, later nicknamed Blanket, and eventually preferring the name Bigi. The older 2 children were born during Jackson's marriage to nurse Deborah Jean Rowe, while the youngest was delivered via a surrogate, whose identity has never been publicly confirmed. Each child's arrival was a major media event, yet their father made deliberate efforts to conceal their identities in public. Photographs from their early years often show the children with veils or masks covering their faces, an unusual practice Jackson defended as necessary to protect them from the paparazzi and potential threats. This practice, while widely discussed and sometimes criticized, underscores the extraordinary measures taken to safeguard their privacy. A rare but overlooked detail lies in Jackson's decision to honor his mother in the naming of his daughter, Paris Michael Catherine. While much attention has been paid to the unusual naming of his sons, the middle name Catherine is a direct tribute to Catherine Jackson, who became the children's primary guardian after Michael's death. This detail connects the children not only to their famous father, but also to their grandmother, who held together the Jackson family during decades of turmoil and fame. The generational link through naming carries symbolic significance, anchoring the children within the family's long history in the entertainment world. A debated point emerges in the discussion of Jackson's intentions for his children's upbringing. Some biographers argue that Jackson intended to raise his children in an environment insulated from fame, emphasizing education and protection from the public eye. Others contend that despite his efforts at privacy, his choices, such as bringing his children on tours, dangling his infant son from a Berlin balcony in 2002, or involving them in public appearances, inevitably thrust them into the global spotlight. Supporters emphasize his role as a caring father who shielded his children as best he could, while critics highlight moments when the protective measures themselves drew more attention. Both perspectives converge on one truth. The children were raised under circumstances unlike those of nearly any other family, caught between an intensely private household and a relentlessly public father. When Jackson died in Los Angeles from acute propofol intoxication, his children were 12, 11, and 7 years old. The immediate aftermath of his death introduced them to the public in ways that had previously been carefully avoided. At Jackson's televised memorial service at the Staples Center on July 7, 2009, Paris spoke briefly, declaring through tears, "Ever since I was born, Daddy has been the best father you could ever imagine." It was the first time many in the public had heard her voice. And the moment made global headlines. Prince and Blanket were also present, their faces uncovered in front of millions watching around the world. The protective veil had been lifted, and their lives as public figures had begun. The shift in public visibility marked the beginning of a new chapter in the children's lives. With their grandmother, Catherine Jackson, granted custody, supported by other family members, the three grew up in a complex environment of wealth, legal disputes, and media attention. The Jackson estate became one of the most lucrative celebrity estates in history, ensuring financial security for the children, but also tying them to ongoing legal battles and public debates over their father's legacy. Their lives would unfold under the dual shadow of immense fortune and the intense scrutiny associated with being the heirs of Michael Jackson. As the years passed, the children began to navigate distinct paths, shaped both by their father's legacy and their own individual choices. Prince, the eldest, leaned into philanthropy and business ventures. Paris pursued acting, modeling, and music, carving out an identity in the entertainment world. Bigi, the youngest, chose privacy, appearing only occasionally in public and avoiding the spotlight wherever possible. Together, they embodied three different approaches to living under the same immense inheritance of fame and controversy. The family structure left behind by Michael Jackson in 2009 was unusual and complicated, but it rested on legally defined relationships and guardianship arrangements that helped shape the children's early lives. The three children were raised in California, primarily in the Jackson family compound in Encino, under the guardianship of Catherine Jackson, their grandmother. The probate court in Los Angeles County granted her full custody on August 3, 2009, formalizing the arrangement that Jackson himself had named in his will. The will, signed in July 2002, specified Catherine Jackson as guardian and, in the event of her death or incapacity, Diana Ross as the next in line. This undisputed fact highlights Jackson's trust in his mother and his long-standing friendship with Ross, but also underscores the absence of their biological mother, Deborah Rowe, in the children's lives during their early years. The rare but overlooked detail in this period is the role of T.J. Jackson, a nephew of Michael Jackson and the son of Tito Jackson. In 2012, when concerns arose about Catherine Jackson's ability to manage the guardianship due to her age, she was in her 80s at the time, TJ was appointed co-guardian alongside her. This arrangement gave the children the support of a younger family member who could balance school activities, security, and the complexities of celebrity life. TJ's involvement is often overlooked in public narratives, which tend to focus solely on Catherine, yet his presence offered stability and continuity. His guardianship remains a legal marker of the family's attempt to balance the needs of the children with the realities of Catherine's advancing age. A debated point centres on the role of Deborah Rowe, the biological mother of Prince and Paris. At the time of Jackson's death, Rowe had largely withdrawn from public life and was not a significant presence in her children's upbringing. Some accounts emphasise that she voluntarily relinquished custody to Jackson after their divorce in 1999, preferring not to be directly involved. Others argue that her distance was partly enforced by legal agreements and financial settlements, limiting her role in the children's lives. In later years, Rowe reconnected with Paris, and their relationship became closer, particularly during Paris's teenage years. While Prince maintained a cordial but limited connection with his mother, the public record reflects differing accounts of Rowe's influence and intentions, with some portraying her as supportive from a distance, while others depict her as estranged until later reconciliation. The three children's identities became more clearly defined in public following their father's passing. Michael Joseph Jackson Jr., widely called Prince, was 12 years old in 2009. He had already been seen in public, but only rarely and almost always with his face covered. Paris, 11 at the time, was suddenly thrust into public awareness with her heartfelt speech at the memorial service. Prince Michael Jackson II, nicknamed Blanket, was only 7 years old and had been the most shielded of the three during Michael's lifetime. His very nickname, Blanket, was the subject of widespread media commentary. Some saw it as a term of endearment used by Jackson, who explained it as symbolizing protection, while others criticized the name as unusual and difficult for the child to carry. Eventually, as he grew older, he rejected the nickname and chose to go by the name Bigi. The children's schooling after 2009 reflects another side of their adjustment to life without their father. Initially educated at home, they were later enrolled in private schools in Los Angeles, including the Buckley School in Sherman Oaks. This transition marked a deliberate shift toward a more conventional upbringing, allowing them to form friendships outside the immediate Jackson family circle. Prince, in particular, took to academic life, participating in school projects and showing an interest in filmmaking and production. Paris gravitated toward arts and performance, while Bigi maintained a quiet presence, rarely discussed in public but known to be academically inclined. Another confirmed detail is that all three children became beneficiaries of the Michael Jackson Family Trust, which manages the estate. The trust was designed to provide for them until adulthood, with specific provisions for their education, housing, and living expenses. Reports from estate filings indicate that the estate has generated billions of dollars since Jackson's death, making it one of the most successful celebrity estates in history. The financial security ensured by this trust meant that the children could pursue their individual paths without the economic challenges that often follow celebrity offspring after a parent's death. The children's rare appearances together after 2009 further underscored their shared bond. At various public events, such as the Grammy Awards tribute to Michael Jackson in 2010, the handprint ceremony at Grauman's Chinese Theatre in 2012, and occasional interviews, they stood united. Despite their different personalities, their presence as a group symbolized continuity within the Jackson legacy. Each carried a different piece of their father's heritage. Prince, with his dedication to philanthropy; Paris, with her artistry and outspoken individuality; and Bigi, with his preference for quiet privacy. Their early lives, shaped by secrecy and then by sudden public exposure, set the foundation for the diverging paths they would later take as adults. Michael Joseph Jackson Jr., widely known as Prince Jackson, was born on February 13, 1997, at the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. He is the eldest of Michael Jackson's three children and the firstborn to Jackson and his second wife, Deborah Rowe. His birth was widely reported at the time, though his father quickly shielded him from the public eye. For much of his childhood, Prince's face was hidden behind masks or veils whenever he was in public with his father. This protective strategy ended abruptly after Michael Jackson's death in 2009, when Prince was thrust into public view at the age of 12. A confirmed fact is that Prince attended the prestigious Buckley School in Sherman Oaks, Los Angeles, before enrolling at Loyola Marymount University. He graduated in May 2019 with a bachelor's degree in business administration. His education gave him both a foundation for entrepreneurial ventures and a platform for building a career outside the shadow of his father's fame. Unlike his father, who entered show business as a child, Prince sought to establish himself in areas beyond performance. He has stated in interviews that he does not sing or dance, preferring to focus on production and behind-the-scenes work. A rare but overlooked detail about Prince's early public appearances was his participation in charitable work at a young age. In 2011, at just 14 years old, he and his siblings accepted the Lifetime Achievement Award on behalf of their father at the Grammy Awards. Beyond formal ceremonies, Prince engaged in philanthropy by co-founding the Heal Los Angeles Foundation in 2016, inspired by his father's Heal the World Foundation. The foundation has worked to provide meals, educational resources, and health programs for underprivileged youth in Los Angeles. Prince's involvement in this initiative demonstrates continuity in his father's legacy, but through a modern lens that emphasizes local community service and youth empowerment. A debated point concerns the extent of Prince's independence from the Jackson family legacy. Some biographers and journalists argue that his ventures in production and philanthropy represent a clear step toward building a life separate from his father's influence. His 2019 launch of King's Son Productions, a small-scale media company, is cited as an example of this independence. Others argue that the foundation of his work is inseparable from Michael Jackson's reputation and financial estate, pointing to the use of his father's name and imagery in charitable events and branding. Supporters see him as a young man carrying forward his father's humanitarian ideals in his own way, while critics question whether his projects would hold as much weight without the Jackson legacy attached. Prince has made occasional appearances in media and television, including serving as a correspondent for Entertainment Tonight in 2013. His role involved interviewing stars and covering events, but it was a short-lived venture, and he did not pursue a career in television journalism afterward. His limited time on screen reinforced the perception that he was more comfortable working behind the scenes rather than being the subject of constant media attention. In subsequent years, Prince has maintained a measured approach to public life, using social media sparingly and focusing on projects that align with his educational background and philanthropic interests. In terms of personal life, Prince has largely avoided scandals and controversies. He has occasionally shared details about his close bond with his siblings, particularly Paris, with whom he has appeared at multiple charity events. His relationship with Bigi has been less public, but he has been protective of his younger brother, emphasizing the importance of family unity in interviews. Prince's romantic relationships have occasionally been covered in celebrity media outlets, but he has consistently drawn boundaries, keeping his private life out of the spotlight whenever possible. Prince's graduation from Loyola Marymount in 2019 marked a milestone that was widely reported in mainstream outlets. He credited his grandmother Catherine and his cousin T.J. Jackson, who had co-guardianship after 2012, for providing stability during his adolescence. His choice to pursue a business degree rather than music or performing arts stood out among celebrity offspring, reinforcing his determination to follow a different path. Another rarely noted detail is Prince's passion for motorcycles, which he has shared occasionally on social media. He's been seen riding through Los Angeles and participating in motorcycle-related charity events, an interest far removed from the stage performances and musical identity associated with his father. This hobby, while seemingly ordinary, reflects his effort to cultivate a personal identity distinct from his family's musical fame. As of the early 2020s, Prince continues to live in Los Angeles and remain involved in philanthropy and production. The Heal Los Angeles Foundation has expanded its programs, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, when it partnered with local organizations to provide food for families in need. Prince's work in this area has earned him respect as a socially engaged public figure who honors his father's humanitarian values while avoiding the intense limelight of celebrity culture. Prince Jackson's path illustrates a balance between embracing aspects of his father's legacy and deliberately forging a life rooted in education, business, and community service. His measured public presence, professional focus, and philanthropic work set the stage for the contrasting journeys of his siblings, Paris and Bigi, who would take very different approaches to life in the aftermath of their father's global fame. Paris, Michael Catherine Jackson, born on April 3, 1998, in Beverly Hills, California, became one of the most publicly recognized of Michael Jackson's 3 children. From her earliest years, she was subjected to the same protective measures as her brothers. appearing in public with her face concealed behind scarves or masks. After Michael Jackson's death in 2009, however, her identity quickly became known to the world. At the memorial service, when she spoke through tears about her father, she instantly became a figure of fascination and empathy for millions who had never heard her voice before. A confirmed fact is that Paris pursued a career in the entertainment industry, following a path closest to her father's in terms of public visibility. In 2017, she signed with IMG Models, one of the world's leading modeling agencies, and soon appeared on the covers of major magazines such as Rolling Stone, Harper's Bazaar, and Teen Vogue. That same year, she made her acting debut in the Fox television series Star. She later appeared in films, including Gringo in 2018, and continued to build a resume in acting, modeling, and music. In 2020, she released her debut solo album, Wilted, which combined elements of folk and alternative music. Her choice of genre distinguished her from the pop and R&B sound associated with her father, reflecting her determination to carve out an independent, artistic identity. A rare but overlooked detail is Paris's involvement in social and environmental causes. Beyond her work in entertainment, she has been active in advocacy for mental health awareness, LGBTQ+ rights, and environmental protection. She co-founded the band The Soundflowers with musician Gabriel Glenn in 2018, performing original songs that often addressed personal and social themes. Though the group was relatively short-lived, it reflected her effort to use music as a platform for personal expression rather than commercial success. She also partnered with organizations like the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation, extending the family's legacy of philanthropy beyond her father's work. The debated point surrounding Paris concerns the degree to which her struggles with mental health and personal challenges should be understood in the context of her father's legacy. Public records confirm that she has spoken openly about experiencing depression, trauma, and periods of hospitalization during her teenage years. Supporters argue that her candor has helped reduce stigma around mental health, making her an important advocate for young people facing similar issues. Critics, however, contend that her openness has sometimes been sensationalized by the media, blurring the line between advocacy and celebrity exposure. While Paris herself has emphasized the importance of honesty and authenticity, commentators continue to debate how much of her personal life should be publicly consumed. Another defining aspect of Paris's journey is her artistic independence. Unlike Prince, who chose philanthropy and business, Paris embraced the stage and media, but with a style distinctly her own. Her debut album, Wilted, received modest commercial attention, but was praised by some critics for its vulnerability and departure from mainstream pop trends. Paris cited influences ranging from alternative rock to folk, rather than the soul and pop traditions associated with the Jackson family. This divergence demonstrates her intent to define her career outside the monumental shadow of her father's music. In her modeling career, Paris became a regular presence at high-profile events, including the Met Gala. She has also been vocal about body positivity, diversity, and inclusivity in the fashion industry, aligning herself with broader cultural conversations. Her presence in both music and fashion reflects a cross-disciplinary approach to fame, where personal branding, advocacy, and artistry intersect. Her relationship with her mother, Deborah Rowe, also became a notable part of her story. During her teenage years, Paris reconnected with Rowe, developing a closer bond after years of limited contact. Media reports documented their renewed relationship, particularly during Rowe's cancer treatment in 2016, when Paris provided support. This reconciliation contrasted with earlier narratives of estrangement and offered another dimension to her public life, showing her willingness to repair family ties despite a difficult past. Paris's personal style, marked by tattoos, unconventional fashion, and candid interviews, has often been highlighted in coverage. She has stated that her tattoos, which number in the dozens, are both expressions of art and tributes to people and ideas important to her. This visual self-expression further differentiates her from her siblings, who have maintained more traditional public images. As of the early 2020s, Paris continues to balance multiple roles: musician, model, actress, and advocate. While her artistic career has not achieved the commercial scale of her father's, her public presence has been consistent, and her commitment to authenticity resonates with fans. She represents a unique branch of the Jackson legacy: public, artistic, and outspoken, yet firmly independent in style and direction. Her trajectory contrasts with that of her younger brother Bigi, whose path has been defined not by visibility, but by privacy and deliberate retreat from public life. Prince Michael Jackson II, born on February 21, 2002, was the youngest of Michael Jackson's 3 children, and the only one born through a surrogate mother. His arrival was marked by a media frenzy, intensified by the mystery surrounding his mother's identity, which has never been publicly confirmed. Almost immediately, he became one of the most discussed celebrity children of his generation, not for anything he had done, but because of his father's fame and the unusual circumstances of his birth. By the time of Michael Jackson's death in 2009, he was only 7 years old, the most sheltered of the siblings and the least publicly known. A confirmed fact is that as he grew older, he rejected the nickname Blanket, which had been used by his father and amplified by the press. By his teenage years, he asked to be called Bigi, a name he continues to use. This choice reflected his effort to establish a personal identity separate from the sensationalized image imposed on him as a child. Today, all official reports, including coverage in People, Good Morning America, and other mainstream outlets, refer to him as Bigi Jackson, underscoring his rejection of the earlier nickname. A rare but overlooked detail is Bigi's keen interest in film and media production, a passion that surfaced in high school. Unlike his brother Prince, who studied business, Bigi pursued creative projects at the Buckley School and later enrolled in classes that emphasized film production and digital storytelling. Though not widely publicized, classmates and teachers described him as deeply engaged with cinematic arts, spending much of his time learning editing and camera work. In 2019, he collaborated with Prince on short film projects connected to King Sun Productions, highlighting his behind-the-scenes ambitions rather than any desire for celebrity status. The debated point concerning Bigi is the extent of his public life, or lack thereof. Some commentators argue that his deliberate avoidance of fame is a form of resistance to the intense scrutiny his siblings and father endured. His rare public appearances, such as at his father's handprint ceremony in 2012, the 2017 public appearance with Prince and Paris on Good Morning Britain, and the occasional charity event, suggest that he values privacy above all. Others counter that Bigi's withdrawal has left him vulnerable to media speculation, as the lack of information about him often invites rumours. While Paris and Prince actively manage their public images through social media and professional work, Bigi's silence is sometimes interpreted as detachment. Supporters of his choices argue that he is simply living as any private individual would wish to, and that the absence of constant exposure is a healthy response to the burdens of inherited fame. Bigi's adolescence and early adulthood have remained largely undocumented in comparison to his siblings. He graduated from the Buckley School in 2020, a fact confirmed in local media coverage, and has since kept his life almost entirely private. He does not maintain official public social media accounts, limiting what is known about his daily activities. His appearances alongside Prince at events hosted by the Heal Los Angeles Foundation show a quiet support for his brother's charitable efforts. but he has avoided stepping into leadership roles. Another overlooked detail is Bigi's participation in martial arts training during his teenage years. Though rarely mentioned in mainstream media, reports from acquaintances suggest that he pursued martial arts for personal discipline and fitness rather than competitive ambition. This interest, while not connected to public performances or philanthropy, underscores his preference for activities that remain outside the glare of celebrity culture. Bigi's life has also been defined by the protective circle of the Jackson family. Katherine Jackson, despite her age, remained an anchor figure, and TJ Jackson continued to support the youngest sibling as co-guardian into his adulthood. Unlike Paris, who sought independence early, or Prince, who engaged in business and charity, Bigi has leaned heavily on the stability provided by his family environment, especially in avoiding unnecessary media interactions. A defining public moment for Bigi came in 2021 when he gave a rare interview to Good Morning Britain. Speaking briefly about his father's legacy, he said that he and his siblings tried to make a difference in the world the way he did, referencing Michael Jackson's humanitarian values. The comment, though brief, offered a glimpse into his perspective, respectful of his father's influence, yet cautious about how much of himself he reveals. As of the early 2020s, Bigi Jackson continues to live in California and pursue interests in film and production, though on a scale far removed from the constant coverage of his siblings. His life reflects an intentional decision to remain private, to work behind the camera rather than in front of it, and to honor his father's legacy without succumbing to the pressures of public expectation. This contrast among the three children, Prince's philanthropy, Paris's artistic and public career, and Bigi's chosen privacy, illustrates the diverse ways in which Michael Jackson's heirs have responded to their unique circumstances. Together, they form a family narrative that is both fractured and united, shaped by wealth, fame, and the constant shadow of their father's name. The legacy of Michael Jackson did not end with his passing in 2009. In many ways, it transformed into a complex legal and financial system designed to preserve his estate and provide for his three children. The Michael Jackson estate, managed by co-executors John Branca and John McClane, has since become one of the most lucrative celebrity estates in history. Court filings confirm that the estate has generated billions of dollars since 2009 through music sales, licensing deals, film projects, and the Cirque du Soleil show, Michael Jackson. 1. These revenues have funded the Michael Jackson Family Trust, which benefits Prince, Paris, and Bigi, ensuring their financial stability for decades to come. A major confirmed fact is that the estate's revenue allowed for the elimination of nearly $500 million in debt that Jackson carried at the time of his death. By 2014, reports showed the estate had become debt-free and began generating surplus income, much of it directed toward the children's trust funds. This transformation, from financial crisis to prosperity, represents one of the most significant turnarounds in the history of celebrity estate management. Each child became a primary beneficiary with access to funds for education, housing, and living expenses, though the estate has withheld direct control until they reach full adulthood. A rare but overlooked detail is the role of the Jackson estate in philanthropic work. Beyond supporting the children, the estate has made donations to charities aligned with Michael Jackson's values, including organizations focused on children's welfare, HIV/AIDS research, and disaster relief. The continuation of these philanthropic activities reflects both a legal responsibility and a symbolic effort to maintain Jackson's image as a humanitarian. This aspect is rarely highlighted in mainstream coverage, which tends to focus more on financial disputes and family conflicts. The most debated point surrounding the estate and legacy concerns the unresolved controversies tied to Michael Jackson's life. the estate has faced repeated challenges from lawsuits, documentaries, and media investigations that revisit allegations from Jackson's lifetime. Supporters of the estate argue that its financial success and the children's well-being reflect the enduring power of Jackson's artistry and the protection of his legacy. Critics counter that ongoing disputes, particularly over the portrayal of Jackson in media such as the 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland, cast a long shadow over both the estate and the children. The debate often centers not on the financial aspects, which remain strong, but on the moral and cultural dimensions of Jackson's memory. The children themselves have occasionally spoken out, defending their father's legacy, but they have largely chosen to build their own lives rather than act as public spokespeople in these controversies. Legal disputes within the Jackson family have also shaped the children's environment. Catherine Jackson, as guardian, was involved in several high-profile court cases concerning the estate, often supported or opposed by other Jackson relatives. In 2012, a family dispute escalated when several of Michael's siblings contested the validity of his will, leading to publicized conflict that indirectly involved the children. While the court ultimately upheld the will and its executors, the episode highlighted the persistent tensions within the broader Jackson family. Despite these disputes, the children remained the uncontested legal heirs, protected by the court's enforcement of their father's wishes. In the years since 2009, the children have stepped into public life in carefully managed ways that reflect their differing personalities. Prince has embraced philanthropy and business. Paris has become a recognizable figure in fashion and music, and Bigi has chosen privacy and selective involvement. They have occasionally appeared together to honor their father's legacy, most notably at the 2010 Grammy Awards tribute, the 2012 Grauman's Chinese Theatre handprint ceremony, and the annual celebration of Michael Jackson's birthday in Gary, Indiana. These appearances demonstrate unity, but they also emphasize their individual choices about how much of themselves to share with the world. The estate's management has continued to expand Michael Jackson's posthumous presence through new releases and projects. In 2010, the album Michael was released, featuring previously unreleased songs. In 2014, Xscape brought reworked versions of unreleased tracks, further fueling the estate's revenues. In 2022, Sony Music acquired the rights to Michael Jackson's music catalog in a deal reportedly worth hundreds of millions of dollars, one of the largest such transactions in history. These deals ensure that the children's inheritance remains substantial, but also bind them to an estate that continuously generates headlines. As of the early 2020s, the three children live independently as young adults. Prince resides in Los Angeles, continuing his involvement with Heal Los Angeles and media production. Paris maintains her music career and public advocacy, often touring internationally. Bigi remains the most private, focusing on film interests and occasionally appearing alongside his siblings. Each has taken a different path, but together they remain tethered to the estate, the trust, and the continuing public fascination with their father. Here, when action de prophecy and the nation. The story of Michael Jackson's children is one of adaptation to extraordinary circumstances. They inherited not only wealth, but also the challenges of navigating life under global scrutiny. Their paths, divergent yet united by shared history, illustrate the enduring impact of their father's fame and the complexity of preserving a legacy that is both celebrated and contested. More than a decade after Michael Jackson's death, his three children stand as living extensions of his complex legacy. Prince Jackson, with his focus on philanthropy and education, represents a continuation of his father's humanitarian ideals. Paris Jackson, with her artistic career and outspoken individuality, reflects the courage to forge a personal identity within the glare of public attention. Bigi Jackson, with his insistence on privacy and quiet pursuit of creative interests, embodies the desire to live a normal life despite extraordinary circumstances. Together, they illustrate the different ways children of immense celebrity adapt to a world that never forgets their surname. The estate that manages their inheritance remains one of the most profitable in celebrity history, ensuring their financial security, but also tying them to ongoing disputes about their father's memory. Media portrayals, legal battles, and cultural debates continue to shape how the Jackson family is perceived. Yet, behind the headlines, the three children have moved into adulthood with resilience, unity, and a determination to define their own paths. The fascination with Michael Jackson's children reflects more than curiosity about celebrity heirs. It reveals the enduring pull of a cultural icon whose life was both dazzling and troubled, and whose legacy remains contested. For Prince, Paris, and Bigi, the challenge has been to honor their father's memory without losing their own voices. In different ways, each has managed to do so, balancing inheritance with independence and private life with public expectation. Their journeys are still unfolding, but they stand today as adults who have endured loss, carried a legacy, and found their own place in a world that will always remember the name Jackson.